Welcome to Imperfect Mommying. Our children are constantly looking to us for examples. The term role model doesn't quite cut it here. We are shaping their worldview with every move we make. You see, it's not in the lectures we give or moments where we are actively attempting to teach them. It's in the micro movements we make, the unconscious ways in which we navigate life. We are constantly teaching our children how to show up for themselves, their friends, their future partners, and even their future children. So what can we do to ensure we are raising thoughtful, compassionate, self-aware human beings? We have to become them ourselves. No one is perfect, but we can still all be better, and it starts with self-healing. Let's get to it. Welcome back to Imperfect Mommying, and I have a very special guest today whose name I practiced pronouncing a dozen times, Jen Jonassaint. Did I say it right? Okay.
Perfect. Perfect.
It's written like Jonassaint. That my brain didn't want to wrap around that. So anyway,
yes.
Welcome to our podcast, and tell us a little bit about you.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm appreciating the mom factor here, but my name is Jen. I'm a wife first, and then I'm a mom. Mm-hmm. And then what I do is that by day I work at a nonprofit doing project and program managing, and then my passion project is my life and money coaching practice, which I'm slowly building to transition when I leave fixed work. So yeah, I have a 13-year-old son who is bigger than his dad because puberty has hit early.
Wow. That's crazy. I always think it's interesting when children are bigger than their parents.
Yeah, puberty hit really early for him, and he's continuing to grow.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your journey, a little bit about some of the struggles that you've had or joys.
Yeah, so
being a mom.
Yeah, I love being a mom. I just think to shape another human being is magical, I think. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, it's scary because they're like sponges, and everything you do, they do, even though you tell them not to do. So it feels like my son actually helped me to grow up. I know it's going to sound kind of crazy, but I didn't know that my husband and I were married for a long time before we had my son. And when he came in, we were fine. We would just pick up and go and do stuff and it'd be fine. If he had a bad day, he'd go into the room. If I had a bad day, I'd go into the room. Mm-hmm. And then we came back together. It was wonderful. Yeah. So then comes my son. And all of a sudden, we're finding out things that we are triggered by because they're deep-seated things in us that our kids push. And we don't know that until we have them.
Right. They find those buttons almost like
they find those buttons
DNA.
And it's amazing how they don't even try to find them. Like it's just there. Well, what I found out was that I think this is my mantra. Our kids are the last thing that's used to grow us up. Because I thought I was so cool when I was single. I thought I was fine. I was just perfect. And then I got married, and then my husband became a mirror. And then I had a son, and it's like, whoa, what happened? So it's like these layers of growth and development that a lot of times we're stuck in because we push it down, or we ignore it, or we minimize it, deny it, rationalize it, and all those things. Mm-hmm. And then this person comes up and they do something or say something, or don't do something, or don't say something. And you're like, oh my goodness, these feelings, where are they coming from? These emotions that you didn't even know were there, like shows up, like anger and impatience and frustration. And, I have a list of words, like they show up and you're like, okay, this one person has that much power over me. Well, it's not the person, right? It's something that's within you that hasn't really shifted yet.
Mm-hmm.
And this little person um has a lot of, it's almost like you're rebirthing yourself. And for
Mm.
me, it's called stuff, I'm rebirthing a part of myself that I left behind. And I didn't even know that she was there.
Yeah.
I think that's
And
the beauty of having kids too.
and I loved how you put it, that it's like round two of growing up, that,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's really
absolutely.
beautiful.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people go into parenting with very little idea of the difficultness
Mm,
of being a parent. And it- when my boyfriend and I talk about it, he's like, I don't understand. Like, it's the thing that all comedians talk about, like all TV shows surrounded with kids to talk
I
about.
know. I
And
know.
I'm like, I know, but honey, if everybody paid as much attention as you do, the human race would end. Like,
No. I know. I know. It's
uh,
it's tricky. It's tricky. I'm a
it,
money coach, and so I talk to parents about, tweens. I had just had a live with toddlers, tweens, and teens of what the money.
mm,
And I do this for a living, and I have a very hard time convincing my son how to manage his money. And it's like, I'm not even going to write a book about anything until he's like grown up.
yeah,
Like, no way, right? Because you have no, here's the thing, you have no control.
yeah,
And I think that's, for me, that's the scariest part. Right on in my office, I have a big poster that I do for him, but it really was for me. And I have two circles, things I can control and things I cannot control.
mm,
And I look at that every single day when I'm working, because I really have no control over another human being. I have influence, but I don't have control.
right.
And, you know, I am, I think every mom has a controlling part to them. They want things to go there. I've yet to meet a mom that's really mellow and sort of don't care.
Well, I
Maybe
think
my
that,
sister.
I mean, it's built into our DNA
That's right.
to nurture. And
Yeah.
I think that in society, we're actually somewhat programmed to hover and control
Oh,
instead of nurture, because
yeah.
nurturing is allowing your child to make mistakes and teaching
Yep.
them and helping them, and then, but we love these little twerps so much that we end up helicopter parenting or whatnot.
Yep.
And we
Yep.
just got a puppy a couple of weeks ago, or a week ago. He adopted us, and I'll tell you, I was
Oh,
not a helicopter parent with my son, but I am absolutely a helicopter parent with this dog, because I could leave my son alone for 30 seconds and him not tear
yeah.
something up or pee on the
Yeah.
floor. Like,
That's so funny. It's hilarious.
yeah. But I
Yeah.
know that a lot of us, like, I genuinely believe that at the core of the helicopter parent, or the controlling parent, at the core is just love. And
Mm.
perhaps it's learned behavior,
Mm.
perhaps there's, a hormone imbalance that's creating it. you know I've seen both of those things. um I can't think of another option off the top of my head of what could create that. um
Yeah.
but that is not a natural thing, in my opinion.
Well, I think, I'm amazed at what you said. You just said at the core of it is love. I was going to say at the core of it is fear.
Mm,
But then, of course, it's, underneath that, it's love,
mhm.
right? Under the
Yeah,
iceberg, it's love.
right.
But at the core, it's fear.
Oh,
It's
there's
fear of,
definitely fear.
this
Fears.
child is going to, you project into the future about what this
Right,
child is going to do just because he did like one thing, made
right.
one mistake, did that
Or
stuff.
there's the news that that feeds our fears of, I have to watch
Yeah.
this child 24/7 or else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or somebody else's child that's doing something similar. It's almost this comparison trap that we get into.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so and so's son is doing this, or so and so's daughter is doing this, and so therefore you have to do that, or whatever. It's just it's learned. It could be learned behavior as well, because I know that our moms had a lot of influence over us, and a lot of it was caught, not taught.
Right.
We caught a lot. I know I caught a lot of
Yeah.
things from my mom, and sometimes and my son says, "You just sound like grandma. Like, you really sound like her," and I'm like, "Really?" So it just feels like you pick up things,
Yeah.
and so that's even the impetus for really monitoring your behavior, because your kids caught, they catch a lot of things more than you teach them, honestly.
And I mean, that's the premise of the podcast, is that, they're watching the show, they're not listening to the lecture. And
That's right.
so in the opening of the show, which you haven't heard because I didn't play it for you, it's that if we want our children to be happy, healthy, fully functioning adults, we have to become them ourselves and model that for them. And I got that concept from my teacher, Sean Smith. I've mentioned him a couple of times so far, that he wrote a book that hopefully is being released in November. It's been almost released for probably 6 years, but I think it's finally getting released in November. But it's called Daddy, Are You Proud of Me? And it's the father-daughter relationship and how that relates to the self-esteem. And when he was,
Yeah.
the way that he creates things is he talks and then someone transcribes. And when I watched the video that created the book, and one of the things he said was, think about the partner that you want your child to marry, that you want your daughter to marry, and then you become that man. Think of the traits that you want her to have in a husband, and then you become that man, because every little girl wants to marry their dad at some point. They want
Yeah.
to marry their dad.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed in my relationships, because I had a really good relationship with my dad, that the relationship I was trying to heal was the relationship with my stepdad. So my boyfriend is a lot like my stepdad. And I've learned to understand him
Yeah.
through my boyfriend, which when I realized that, I was like, oh, that's so crazy. I never would have made that connection.
Yeah.
But I did, because of some incident that I was like, oh, that's what my stepdad used to do to me.
Wow.
Sorry,
Yeah. I
we
mean,
digressed a bit.
we're always healing. And I think our kids really, I think they come into this world to fully heal us.
Yeah.
And I have nothing against people who don't have kids. I mean, they probably, there's other things that you could grow from. But I think for me, the biggest growth that I saw in my life was when I had my son.
Yeah.
The biggest growth. I mean, the courses that I took, the degrees I have can't even come close to I call the PhD when I had my son. I mean, I literally saw myself growing in so many different ways. And although it's, the journey is never linear, but you could look back and see progress. It's almost like you take, some steps forward, and you look back and you're like, wow, I look into my journals, because I've journaled for 25 years. And I look back at my journals when my son was younger, and I look back and I'm like, who is this woman? And I look back now and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've grown. And so for me, charting the progress is always through writing. I mean, I don't consider myself a writer, but I've journaled, so maybe that's what I call a writer, but I don't know. But so for me, the act of putting pen to paper is so powerful, because if I never wrote those journals, I would have never known the progress that I've made. And so, and I've journaled, his growth as well. And so showing him, and I said to him, I'm going to create a memoir for you and give it to you on your wedding day. He's like, Mom, I'm not even going to get married. I'm like, that's okay. That's okay. I'm going to give it to you anyway. To show him how far he's come.
Yeah.
Because I think that that's a powerful gift to transfer to him so that he can look back when he has his children to do that. So that's a nice special way that I'm trying to sort of gift that to him in some ways, to show him that process. But we all grow in different ways.
Yeah. And I love that idea. And I'm a little jealous because I was always afraid of the thoughts that I had in my head that I didn't want to write them down.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
You're not the first person who said that, by the way. Yeah.
And for me, I believe that it stems from, I grew up as a pastor's daughter, and as a pastor's daughter, I felt like I was always being watched. And for a long time, I used to say, like, I can't go anywhere without running into someone that knows my dad. And because of that, I felt like I had to always be on my perfect best behavior. And that's very, it's hard to, and there's this stereotype where pastors' children are supposed to be perfect, or they're the opposite of perfect. They're, hellions, right? So there's you're one or the other. You can't be, there's nothing in between. You're either
nothing
perfect
in between,
or you're a hellion.
What pressure is that on the child?
Right. And I knew I wasn't the hellion, but I also knew I wasn't perfect.
Right.
And
no one is.
But I didn't want anybody else to know that I wasn't perfect. So I worked really, really hard on trying to be Jen's perfect version of Alysia, which meant I had to figure out who you wanted me to be and who your perfect version of me was, and then be that person. And so
that's a lot of work.
It's so much work. And I was telling you before I hit record that I was more comfortable in writing before I was comfortable in speaking, because I was afraid of saying the wrong thing.
Okay.
And that's where that stems from. But I don't know about other people who don't like to write, who don't like to journal. But I actually wish now that I did journal back then, so I could read those words and really get into my head back then to see what you've just described of, like, the growth that but I guess I'm going to continue to grow, so I could start now if I really wanted to.
Absolutely. Until you die, you'll grow for sure.
If you're not growing, you're dying. I'm pretty sure that's a saying somewhere, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
So before we hit record, you were talking about emotions and the difference between boys and emotions, and the difference between how girls are programmed and how boys are programmed with regards to emotions. And you've also mentioned in a previous conversation that you were triggered by your son's emotions. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, boys, and again, all his friends, most of his friends are boys, so I'm around boys all the time.
Right.
And I observe them because they're rowdy, and they talk a different language. And it's funny because my son is very social, and he has a lot of friends who are boys. And when they get together, and I asked him, when we were around the kitchen table, we were playing a board game, I said, so what do you guys talk about? I'm trying to pick his brain. And he's like, well, we talk about cars and, superpowers and gaming and stuff. And I'm like, do you talk about your feelings? And he's like, no. And I'm like, yeah, but you got a lot of feelings at home. How come you don't show them that side of yourself? And he's like, no, I would never do that.
Yeah.
And I said, but your feelings are so expressive at home. You're able to sob and cry and get mad and yell and scream and do all the things that I see every facet of you. He said, that's because you're my mom. And I was like, oh, he's like, don't go there. You know, so he, you know, mom is a safe place.
Yeah.
Mom is a safe place for him to show all of his feelings.
Yeah.
Right. Because he knows that I can take it. And at the same time, those feelings were triggering me because I grew up very shy, introverted. I stuffed my feelings. I had a lot of anxiety. I mean, I was painfully shy, you know, and I know people like you, and I'm like, yeah. So when I look back at my younger self, and I was like, and nobody knew, nobody saw that I was anxious because they just thought I was quote shy, right? I'm talking painfully shy.
Yeah.
No one knew that I was stuffing all the feelings inside because just because I wasn't talking, that means I just wasn't talking. But nobody got underneath that behavior, right? Nobody got underneath and said, well, gee, what's, you know, did you want to talk? Nobody sort of sat down with me and sort of shared like feelings talk. I have that with my son now today. We have a list of words, we have journaling, you know, we have all of that. He's like, Mom, you're always asking questions about my feelings. I'm like, yeah, because you once at some point, you know, I'm assuming you'll get into a relationship and feelings are part of a relationship. So I say to him, listen, I want your wife or girlfriend to call me and say, you did a great job. Like I do with his dad, like with his mom. I said, you did a great job with him, even though he had a lot of work to do. But, you know, he was very in touch with his feelings. And so I say, you know, I think as moms, our job, I think as a mom, for me, my job is to help him prepare for the adulting world. And I say to him, you're not a kid, you're a young adult. Right. No, I'm not an adult. I said, yeah, I'm not raising a kid, I'm raising an adult. So I'm adulting 101 right now. And so, you know, so we prepare our kids to adulting. We don't keep them as kids. And I think that's the difference. You know, even in other cultures, kids as young as 9, they're able to shop and do laundry and prepare meals and take care. I mean, they have adulting responsibilities. Right. Well, mainly because they're very poor. But in addition to that, you know, they have, you know, their mom go to work or whatever. But at the end of the day, our culture, this Western culture, is very protective and clingy and, you know, keep Junior young and don't let him. No, right. I'm raising you up to be a man. At some point, you will leave my house and have your own. Please, right? At some point, you'll have a job and be able to manage at some point. So if we don't allow kids to do that, or we don't teach them the skills, which is really what we're trying to do as parents, then they become atrophy, right? And then so they stay longer, right? And they don't build those muscles that they should build.
You're handicapping your children when you do everything
Absolutely
for them. And
absolutely,
I've heard a saying that if you don't raise your children, you'll be raising your grandchildren. And that hurts me a lot.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's true. It's so true. And one of the things that I sat down with my son, because the reason I liked this topic was, you know, I do believe that men and women are programmed differently with their emotions, where I feel like the only emotion that it's okay for men to share is anger. And the only emotion that women aren't allowed to show is anger, I think. And because women are sugar and spice and everything nice, and men are men, and so they show their anger, right?
Which by the way, it's really sometimes grief and sadness. So that's just anger. It's just
we have a model of 6 layers of emotions, where we have people go through 6 layers of anger and regret and fear, and I don't remember them all, but the last 2 are love and desire. And that's why I said that the core of our emotions is love. And because we're born with love and desire, and that's all we're born with. But because of this concept, because of going through coaching and all of that, I pay attention to
Yeah.
what's going on. And my son is very emotional, and my boyfriend keeps it on the down low. He'll be emotional with me,
Right.
but I get to see the real him, and the world gets to see the macho him.
Right.
And I've seen him shut my son down emotionally, and I always go back to him, and I've had this conversation with him where I said that the world doesn't think it's okay for men to have emotions,
Right.
but it's changing. Like, I see the pendulum is swinging where
Mm-hmm.
it's becoming okay for men to show their emotions.
Yes.
And you're going to get mixed signals from in our household.
Yeah.
And I said, but you can always share your emotion with me, even if you can't share your emotion with him. And I feel like it's improving too, that we're dynamic in that relationship is improving. Um, and that's all you can hope for, is just,
Yeah.
the constant evolution of relationships, of self, of humans.
Yeah. I think again, it's about growing to be better.
Mhm.
Um, and I think, we'll never sort of know ourselves fully because there's so many facets of us. And as we age, we grow, we
Yeah.
change. I'm not the same person at this age. Like, I look back at my younger self. And one of the things that I have clients do is write a letter to their younger self, and then also write a letter to their future self.
Mm.
What would you say to yourself? What would you say to your 13-year-old self
Mm.
right now?
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, I would have so much compassion for her.
Yeah.
you know wow. And then I have friends that have young girls, and they come to me and they say, oh, my daughter is so shy, and I'm like, yeah, I was her. And that, it's almost like I'm seeing myself when they bring these young girls to me, because I had no one to sort of sit me down. So I share with them that the evolving process takes place and you don't even know it. It's
Yeah.
like, when did I change? Like, what happened? I didn't. It's almost like you look back and like, wow, you were even shocked about your change. It's like unbelievable. I never would have
Well,
imagined this.
like you said, you were painfully shy. I never would have pegged you as painfully shy.
I tell you, I'm gonna do from memoir. I'm gonna do from journal to memoir. I'm serious,
Yeah.
because people will never know. And that's why when parents are so um upset, or they're worried about their daughter, and I'm like, you wait, just wait, because she will evolve.
Yeah.
It's almost like you could see yourself in the future. I could not have seen myself here. There's no way.
Yeah.
People had me pegged as so many different things, but not this Jennifer, not no way, right?
Yeah.
So I think, which is the beauty of evolving and changing. Now, again, I was a willing participant. I was eager, I was hungry, I was always grasping to know and learn. I'm always interested in newer science, how the brain works. So I was a curious person, except it was stuffed down. It
Mm.
wasn't, I wasn't taught to explore, and I wasn't taught to ask questions. Maybe that's why I'm a coach and I do such a good job of getting my clients sort of the deeper things. I was always very deep, but I never verbalized it. I
Mm.
was not given maybe an opportunity, or maybe they didn't know at the time. So I say to parents, give your child the opportunity to share in whatever method they choose to, whether it's art or journal or dance, in whatever method they have a voice in that method, allow them to explore.
Yeah.
But I think if you're not allowed to explore, then you're fashioned into somebody that you think you want, to be, or you're not given that choice. And it becomes like, oh, I'm just going to be a chameleon and just blend in with everything else, because it's too painful to even share, because nobody wants to listen anyway. You know what I mean? So it's that kind of, I mean, I was growing up, they had this joke about me is that no one knew even I existed. I mean, it was a joke, but it was painful at the time because when I was with my other siblings, who was very loud, and they sort of had that, it was quite the opposite. It was the antithesis of me, right? So every time we go somewhere, my family would say, my people would say, who is this one? This one is what they call me. And my mother said, oh, that's Jen. She, oh, I didn't even know you had, even today. It's funny. Even today, people, I go to, and I'm from Trinidad. I'm not from this country. So I go to visit, and my mom is downtown, and she's like the social butterfly. And then people say, who's, is this your friend? And they're like, oh, this is the fourth one. This is what she calls me. Oh, this is the fourth one. And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. Thank God I'm healed enough so that it doesn't bother me anymore. Right. But I mean, that's how they introduced me.
Yeah.
It was so, but to see, so that was the impetus for even more anxiety. Like, nobody knows me. I don't exist. I don't have a voice. I don't feel valued. I'm here. And so I look back at my journals and I'm like, oh my gosh. So that I will tell my 13-year-old self, oh, I feel, I want you to share. I just want you to tell me exactly how you're feeling. And I would sit with that 13-year-old and have so much compassion.
And that's super powerful. That's something that my coaching community calls superconductivity, where you talk to a younger version of yourself.
Absolutely.
Or to someone else that's not there, like maybe a parent who's passed away or something like that. And then I would strongly encourage people to be careful how they label their children. Be careful of saying things like, oh, she's just shy.
Right.
Be very careful.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they're not shy. They just don't like that person. Or they take a minute to warm up.
Right.
Whatever the case may be. But now you've put the label of shy on them.
Yes.
And so that becomes part of their identity, and it becomes
correct.
They feel like they're expected to be.
Yes.
And you just had louder siblings, and there probably wasn't a lot of space for you.
No.
And so that's why you were quieter. And then perhaps somebody put the label of shy on you. And maybe that's not how you were born at all.
No, I mean, if you know anything about the Enneagram, like I said to you in our pre-show, I'm an Enneagram 7. I had no idea. If anybody would have told me, I would never believe it. Enneagram 7 is the eternal optimist, the life of the party. Nobody would have said that. And so I was talking to my Enneagram a cohort. She's an Enneagram coach. And she said, you were always that all along. You just covered it up with stuff because no one gave you an opportunity. And I'm like, because I said, did I change? She's like, no, that was your personality all along. So it was kind of interesting that you said that. So I just took the label of shy, and I was like, okay, I'm shy, so I'll just act shy.
Yeah.
But in fact, no one gave me a chance.
Right.
It's like playing double dutch, and somebody, I don't know if you know double dutch, and he's like, can I get a chance to go into the double dutch? Right. I didn't get a chance.
Yeah. And some people never get rid of that label, and they spend their entire life under the label of shy or whatever. My label was too emotional. And so as I got older, because I was trying to hide my emotions constantly because I was too emotional. So I was trying to be not emotional. And then I can't be not emotional because I am emotional. And so then when I would show emotion and someone would say, why are you getting so emotional? I would just lose it. My hair lady and I kind of laugh about it now because she said via text that I was being too emotional. And I was like, no, my hair's messed up. What are you talking about? Like, she just did. And I just got so much angrier at the point that she said, you're too emotional. And I came back to her later and I was explaining, that this was a trigger of mine. And she goes, oh, that explains it.
Yeah, that's so interesting, right? Wow. Yeah, you said something so, don't label your kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, because we get enough labels as in from society. And the reason that we're all labeled in some way, shape, or form is because we want to be able to put somebody in a box. We want to be able to
Right.
put them in a box and understand them because they're in the box.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but these labels are actually hurting now because they're creating more of a divide, and they're
Yeah.
creating this, I'm this and you're that.
Right.
So my dog agrees. I don't know if you could hear him
Yes,
barking.
I do.
Yeah. So I think it's about to go down between the cat and the dog. We've been waiting for that for a week.
That's fun. That's
Yeah,
fun.
I didn't call you bud. The dog was barking. So anyway, getting a little off topic, but I mean, that's the thing about labels, and that's the reason our brain creates labels,
Right.
because if I can put you in a label of heterosexual woman, then I understand more about who you are, and I think I know you now. So now I don't need
Mm-hmm.
to get to know you any further. I know
Mm-hmm.
you.
Mm-hmm.
and
That's interesting.
and so, but like I said, it's creating divide, and it's creating conflict, and it creates identity too.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, and so, and these identities can propel us or they can hold us back depending on how we interpret the identity. So
Yeah, and I think you're right in terms of people. Some people still hold to that identity even as they get older. Like, why would you hold to that? Why don't you just drop it and become somebody new, or not new, but evolve into who you were meant to be? That's a process, and there
yeah.
has to be a willingness on that part and opportunities too as well. So I think all of those things allow for the person to really become who they want to be. And once you get to that place, you're like, I am never going to go back. Like, there's no way,
And these
right?
identities are also created from as protection.
Yes.
And
Yes.
if they're so if I have the identity of shy, it's protecting
Right.
me from being
Yeah.
seen, because being seen is scary, and so
Right.
I will be shy and therefore unseen.
Yes.
And then at some point we decide to do something crazy like build a business, and now we have to be seen,
That's right.
but this old identity of shy doesn't quite fit in anymore, and then we try
Right.
to bust through the shy, and we
Yeah.
get angry at the shy, and we get and when it was created to
Mm-hmm.
protect you. And
Mm-hmm.
what do we protect? Things that we love. And so the
Mm-hmm.
protection is born out of love. And so we're not going to anger it away, and we're not going to hate it away, and we're not going to, force it away. We have to meet it where it's at and thank it for the protection. And I don't need you anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting that you sound like it's one of the modalities that I use with my clients. It's called internal family systems,
Mm,
and it has very similar language, but we call those things, we call those protective part managers, you
mm,
know, and parts. That's a part of me. We're not one, person. We're like parts of a part of me, or shy.
yeah.
And at times, guess what? I go back there
Yeah.
when I'm faced with, some major big things that I have to do. And it's like, oh no, I can't do this. And a part of me just, that part of me have to remind that other part that it's okay. Now you have resources, you've grown up, you've been successful, you're professional. I have to remind that younger part that it's okay. I'll keep you safe and it's
Mhm.
okay. And so there's parts of us that are still within us, that we continue to grow, and those other parts get very, not dumbed down in a way, but they don't trigger us as much anymore
Right.
as we evolve into this person. So it's a very interesting work, and I use a lot of the modalities with my clients
Yeah.
because we all have them.
Right. And I think that a trigger, I think there's a quote that I don't remember exactly or who said it, but it's like a trigger is a wound that's ready to heal.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. And so when you think about these things that trigger you, it's literally saying, "Hey, I'm here, address me. Pay attention
Yeah.
to me." And when you dissect it, because I'll go through like, okay, why did I respond that way? He did this, I did that. And then, oh, okay, because that's what I made it mean, or it reminded me of this, and this is my response to that. And when you take the time to really dissect those things, it gets addressed, and then it can go away if it's something that doesn't serve you anymore. So,
Yeah, I mean that's a powerful way to look at it.
yeah.
But oftentimes I know that, I mean, I talk to my friends openly about this, the triggers, we numb it, right? We
Mhm.
numb it with a lot of external stimuli because it just feels so overwhelming, right? Those triggers feel so, it's like, I'm going to die,
Yeah.
and therefore I have to have a bag of cookies, something like that, right?
Because
Because,
emotions aren't okay.
right, because I feel out of my body, like it feels so overwhelming. And, feelings can kill you. Feelings can kill you. So what is true?
Right.
It's just a feeling, and if addressed and dealt with, it's gonna go away.
For sure.
It may come again, but it's okay. You're not gonna die. It's gonna be okay. You almost have
Especially
to
if you,
talk to yourself that way.
and especially if you give yourself the permission to feel the emotion. It only lasts, I
Yeah.
think one book that I read was like, it said that emotions only last 90 seconds. If
Oh,
you
it feels like
actually
eternity. It feels like eternity.
if you actually allow them to come out,
Yeah.
it's only lasts 90 seconds. But
Yeah.
we don't allow them to come out. We shut
No.
them down, and then we've got 87 things, and there's this beach ball under the water, and then something
Yes.
happens and it goes
Pop. I call it the pressure cooker eruption.
right.
The pressure cooker eruption.
Well,
And
exactly.
that's how you know that you have other work to do. Like I call it soul work to do. I'm reading
Love
this
it.
book by two authors called Boundaries for Your Soul. And in it, they're really talking about inner journey stuff that people typically shy away from. I mean, if you're a avoider, you are not going deep or inside anything. You are definitely shallow,
Yeah.
and you avoid those things. But you're right. If you sit with those feelings, sitting with them, it becomes less and less overwhelming, and it becomes less and less scary.
Mm,
But you got to sit with it,
yeah.
which is the part that I think most people can't handle. It's
Right.
too much.
Is
It's too
there
much.
a piece of advice that you want to share with the moms listening?
Well, for one thing, I mean, I am big into self-care. Like self-care is my thing. Um, I bookend self-care on my planner every day. Like I am I am not shy about self-care
Yeah.
because self-care includes also getting to know yourself. It's
Yeah.
not, running a bath and, it's that too, but it's even more for me. It's more inner journey work. It's more connecting. It's more with self and with others. It's really getting to know, appreciate, and love yourself. In my book, that's just self-care.
Mm,
And I think when I do that, I could see myself becoming a better mom.
yeah.
Honestly, I
Mm-hmm.
have more to give. There's more deposits that I have, so that when my son come under the doors, guess what? I don't feel depleted. You know why? Because I have overflow.
Yeah.
And so I think the opposite mom feels is the opposite. Like, no, I got to give all to Johnny. But when Johnny just drains me, because kids have a tendency to suck you dry, right? In a very nice way.
Mm-hmm.
You have nothing to give. Not only nothing to give him, but nothing for you. And
Right.
so, I really believe in not selfish. That's not what I'm trying to say here.
Right.
Is that, I said to my son sometimes when I drive him to camp, I said, honey, sometimes he want to do something. I said, honey, mom just wants to be quiet right now. I need to take time for myself. Is that okay? Give me a minute, honey, please. And so he says, well, what did I do now? It's like, no, honey, it's not you, it's me.
Yeah.
It's just me. I need some space. I need some time. I need some energy. And that's when I don't have my ritual and my practice. I have a ritual, a rhythm, a routine. That's why another thing I tell moms, build a routine, build a rhythm, build a ritual. And before you know it, you create a good habit of self first. Fill yourself up with the things that you love, the things that make you passionate, you have passion. I'm not talking about spending 8 hours on yourself. That's not what I'm talking about at all. Right. And when your child comes or does something that quote may cause frustration, all of a sudden you're this peaceful, compassionate person. You're like, whoa, what happened? Oh, because I got enough rest, I got enough water, I got enough movement, I got enough me time. Oh, Johnny, come. There's an overflow.
Right.
And I'm ready to serve you, because really I think our job is really to help our kids see the best us. And if we blow it, which we would do, it's okay. There's grace.
Right. And when COVID first started, and when I realized that that meant that nobody was like, I was used to having some time to myself where
Mhm.
he would go to grandma's,
Oh,
he would go to cousins, or he would go wherever. When I realized that that wasn't an option, I I was nervous, and I told my son, I said, I'm nervous because moms need breaks from kids, and kids
yes,
need breaks from moms.
that's right.
And we're not going to have that until everything's opens up again, or I don't even remember what I thought was going to happen at that point. But um and I remember one day he goes, "Mom, I need a break from you." I'm like, okay.
I know. I
and,
know. I
and the
love
crazy,
it when they model, what we
right?
what we taught them.
And the
So
crazy
funny.
thing about that was that for the most part, I never got to the point where I was like pulling my hair out, I need a break. Where I got to that point at when he was, probably 17, 18 months old, because that was 3 months into separating from his dad, and having him 24/7, and I didn't have a break, and I was like
Right.
so overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And then his dad took him for a week, and I was like, oh, I feel rejuvenated. It was just where I don't have to take care of anybody but myself.
Right.
And so now that's part of my routine, where I have
That's right.
one day where grandma takes him overnight, and
Nice.
the only person I have to take care of is me and the dog.
The dog.
He's new, but
Yes.
I'm the only one I have to take care of, and that
Right.
is enough for me for the week. I still have
Wow.
some time. I'll get an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
But if I don't get those times because I choose to sleep in or go to sleep early or whatnot, I still have I had my 24 hours where the only person I'm responsible for is me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. That's a gift to yourself for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
It's
it's a gift to grandma, and it's a gift to Xander. And when you shift it that way, that it's
mm-hmm.
not selfish because I need
Right.
to be alone, because I need to
Right.
not have to take care of everyone else. That
Mm-hmm.
when you shift it, like, no, someone else is loving on him
Mm-hmm.
while I'm loving on me.
Yeah. I mean, but here's the thing. It's not taught. We're not
Right.
taught to do that.
Yeah.
We're not, who modeled that? I mean, I don't even think my mom took I don't even think she took a vacation even.
Yeah.
I don't think they went away. Like my mom was always there.
Yeah.
So now I'm looking back, I'm thinking, and she had 5 of us, and I'm like,
Oof.
how
Yeah.
did you do that?
Right.
How in the world did you do that and stay sane?
Right.
How did you do
And not
that?
take a break. Like
And not take a break. I'm like, I have one child and I have a husband, and I'm like, I want to take a break. I need a break. And I'm like, you were made of steel. And I bow down before you because I have no idea how you did it. Right? So she wasn't taught because her mom probably did the same thing. So I think for you, I think for me, I had to break the mold of saying, you know what? I am not going to do that. That's not going to be my future.
Right.
Here's something I'm going to flip the script and do something completely different that falls in line with who I am and my values. And that's what it is.
And that's why it's important that you and I model it for others.
That's right.
Because
that's right.
Our moms didn't model it for us. We figured it out somewhere along the way. And now we're sharing it with other moms because their moms are going crazy out there. Moms are, when I started working with moms, in our community, they like to say, there's someone out there dying for your message, sometimes literally, and you're worried about whether your camera has the proper lighting or you have the right microphone or whatever. And I was like, yeah, but moms aren't killing themselves. Like, that's not a thing. And I said that to a mom in that group, and she said, I tried to kill myself three years ago. And I was like, oh, she goes, I needed your message 3 years ago. And it's like, oh, just kidding. I have work to do, and not to take it on a whole, deep and crazy level or anything, but like, that's what's going on in some moms' lives where they're that overworked and they're that underappreciated. I had a direct sales business. I still have it actually, but is a cosmetics business. And I used to call referrals and I would say that your friend said that you're overworked and under pampered. And every single one of them was like, oh, yes.
I love that. Overworked and under pampered. I love that concept. That is so fun. And that's why I think for me, I try to reach out to other moms, like, just because I love to connect. I reach out to other moms and pull them away and say, you know what, let's just take a walk on the beach. Let's go and do some painting. I just did that with 2 other moms. Our kids can play together, or I'll bring your son over here. Take a day, take some time to just connect. And I give them that as a gift just because I know what it feels like to be a busy mom. So I give my time, not always. I try to do it twice a month because I have a husband and I have, other duties. Because I want to say, you know what, you're special. And I can't just say you're special. I have to treat you that way. And if it means spending the whole day or half a day with yourself, because I took a kid and take them to the park or something so you can have some time. And when I come back, you better have some time. Don't tell me that you're working on other things. I want you to have, this is a time for you. And so I do that purposely to give moms a break. And I never even thought about that was what I was doing, but that was what I did. That's what I do.
Awesome.
Especially single moms. And I have such a heart for single moms because I do this with my husband, who's very involved. And I'm like, I have no idea how I do it by myself. Yeah. So I just feel that me giving my mom friends a break is the least I can do to show how much I love them.
Being a single mom was hard, and I was really, really resentful for a long time. And then 5 years into my relationship, I finally let go of that resentment. But is there a book that you mentioned, a book earlier, but is there a book that's been particularly impactful for you in your personal development journey?
Wow. I mean, I've read a lot of books. I'm a book hog. Love to read, love to write. But I think the book that impacted me the most was the book that I mentioned, Boundaries for Your Soul,
Mm,
because it's an inner journey book,
mm,
because it goes really deep, because it deals with such deep things, and it's a book of healing. It really is a self-care book, not in a traditional sense, but it really gets to the parts of us that we try to hide. All the parts that we try to hide and minimize, rationalize, deny, cover up. And it really takes you through a very gentle and compassionate way to heal. And I think, for me, I savor that book. I've read it 3, maybe 4 times, and I dog eared the whole thing.
mm,
And I practice it. Not only do I read it, I practice the principles in it. I live my life like it's so. And over time, I've seen myself shift as a result of this book.
mm,
And so for me, I saw the author speak at a woman's breakfast. I was there, and she's a local New Englander, so I love her.
mm.
Um, Dr. Allison Cook. And the book just is so interesting because I use some of the practices in my coaching practice as well. So I practice on me because I'm the student coach
Right.
here. I always say I haven't arrived, so I'm the student coach. So I do that on me so I can know what it feels like and how I'm changing. And so I offer that as one of the modalities to my coaching clients and see great shifts in them. If they're open, you have to be open to use different modalities in your practice. And so I use a variety of ones, but that one I really, really enjoy and love because it's so very deep. I'm not a shallow person, so I just like deep.
Yeah, I'm the same. So where can our listeners find you?
So they can find me on Facebook at Jen Inspiring Coach. I have a Facebook page. I have a small group page. It was used to be Money Habitude 101. I've now changed it into Transformational Community
Mm,
because I realized that the work that I do is transformational. People shift and change, and I don't do anything. I'm a guide, and that's what I
yeah,
call myself.
love it.
They do all the work. And then I have my Instagram handle, which is Jen Inspiring Coach. I have a website, jeninspiringcoach.com. I have a blog that goes out. I can only do it once a month. I have a lifestyle business, which is where my business is around my lifestyle. It's not the other way around. I'm not in it for the money. I'm here. I've been called, I think, to be a wounded healer, but I just use coaching principles to create a holistic way for people to sort of gain control over their life and their money so they can leave a generational legacy.
Mm,
That's really my purpose. I call myself a chief people officer. I'm
mm,
in the people business. I help people. If I could help people all day long, I'd do it in a minute. And that's really what I do. So I'm here to serve. I'm not here to make a big name or for myself, or I genuinely love people. I love to see transformational shifts in people. That brings me joy.
yeah, I
So
love
that's me.
that. Um, I'm being beckoned to bring food, so we're gonna wrap this up.
Listen,
But
girl, I get it. I get it. Trust me, you don't have to explain. When I talk to my mom friends, I said, listen, you don't have to explain one word. I get exactly what you're going through. So
right,
I
he's a growing boy. I get it. Well, I appreciate you being on the podcast tonight, and well, tonight, today, whenever you're listening to it.
Yeah, and I have also freebies on my website. People can download it. I have a free money and life journal. Lots of resources, lots of tips, tools, tricks in that journal. It's called From Financially Frazzled to Financially Free, but it's much more about finances in that book. I also have about 6 free money guides, everything from how to build financial confidence to teach your tweens and teens about money. It's downloadable, it's complimentary. So folks can grab that if they want to.
I think I'll have to run over and check that out because now Xander is interested in making money, so he
All
can.
right. Way to go. Way to go. And I'm doing an ebook with my son together. He's actually written one, so I'm trying to, work with him on that. So
Yeah.
that's good.
Well, thank you again for everything, for pouring into to our listeners, and for
Yay.
everything that you do on this planet, and the lives that you're changing without even realizing that you're changing lives.
Yay.
And so thank you.
Thank you so much, Alysia. This was fun. From one mom to another, girl, we're going to make it happen.
Right. Exactly. Well, we'll have another episode of Imperfect Momming next week. And until then, keep on healing. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to Imperfect Momming. It's time for us to step up and realize that our power is not in trying to shape our children. Our power lies in shaping ourselves into the people we want our children to model themselves after. Don't just do it for your kids. Do it for yourself. When you become a more self-aware, compassionate, and confident person, you and everyone around you benefit. For more information about me and my work, visit AlysiaLyons.com. That's AlysiaLyons.com. See you next time.